Hello and welcome to Idea TV Midday News. I am Chinatu Oji. We begin with the headlines. Nigeria to adopt European digital governance model. World Bank warns food inflation is crushing Nigeria's poor versus states. Africa's data center boom faces power, skills and regulatory hurdles. Africa eyes green industrial future with critical mineral wealth. Away from Africa, Trump warns of 100% tariff on China as trade tensions deepen. In health, the Nigerian professor develops AI system to predict depression before symptoms. In business, NAIRA strengthens to 1,458 to a dollar, marking best performance since 2024. Sport. NFF President GUSAU pledges to drive African football growth in FIFA role. Now the news in full. The federal government is set to adopt a European-style model of digital governance as the European Union partners with Nigeria to deploy the X-Road system, a secure, open-source infrastructure used in countries like Finland and Estonia. The platform interconnects public institutions, enabling seamless real-time data exchange while protecting user privacy. The initiative was announced at the 2025 Nigeria GovTech Conference in Abuja, themed Redefining Possibilities, harnessing emerging technologies for public service delivery and socio-economic development. EU Ambassador to Nigeria and ECOWAS Gautier Mignot explained that the system will connect all government sectors and services securely, preventing unnecessary exposure of citizens' data. He added that the collaboration extends beyond governance, with the EU committing to deploy 90,000 kilometers of additional fiber optic cables, expand digital literacy programs, and establish digital transformation centers across the country. An initial £8 million grant has also been provided under the Nigeria Digital Economy Initiative to strengthen data infrastructure and internet access. Director General of the Bureau of Public Service Reforms, Dasuki Arabi, noted the Nigeria civil service is already embracing advanced technologies such as artificial intelligence, robotics, machine learning, and blockchain to improve transparency and efficiency. He further revealed plans to train over 500,000 public servants in digital literacy to ensure sustainability and innovation within the public sector. According to him, the goal is to build a workforce capable of managing and maintaining these emerging systems for long-term national benefits. The Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume, represented at the event by Eswabanga Nkwasanye, reiterated that digital transformation is essential to President Bola Tinubu's governance reform agenda. He emphasized that digitizing government services will enhance transparency, reduce costs, and make doing business easier in Nigeria. The initiative aligns with the National Digital Economy Policy and Strategy 2020 to 2030, aimed at positioning Nigeria as a leading digital economy in Africa. Moving on, food inflation in Nigeria has surged by 201% since 2019, significantly impacting the country's most vulnerable populations, according to a new World Bank report titled From Policy to People, Bringing the Reform Gains Home. The report acknowledges recent economic reforms that have improved foreign exchange reserves and debts to GDP ratios. However, it warns that the poorest households continue to suffer from skyrocketing food prices, which have more than doubled in just 5 years. The report reveals that between 2019 and 2024, cumulative inflation for the country's poorest, measured by the Consumer Price Index for the poor, rose by staggering 406% compared to general inflation of 161%. It also notes that Nigeria's bottom 10% of households spend about 70% of the total income on food, while the wealthiest spend around 57%, highlighting the disproportionate burden on the poor. World Bank senior economist for Nigeria to address the crisis says that the World Bank recommends urgent reforms aimed at boosting agricultural productivity and reducing food costs. These include lifting trade restrictions such as import bans and excessive customs duties, while increasing investment in seeds, fertilizers, farm inputs, and infrastructure. Significant supply chain inefficiencies were also flagged, particularly due to poor storage, lack of cold chain logistics, and unreliable electricity. These challenges result in massive food losses of 76% for tomatoes, 25% for maize, and 34% for catfish. The situation is further compounded by rising poverty, with the number of Nigerians living below the poverty line expected to reach 139 million this year, up from 81 million in 2019. Moving ahead, Africa's data center sector is experiencing rapid growth marked by major investments like Ragsure Group's recent $30 million facility launch in Angola, backed by $100 million in financing from the International Finance Corporation, IFC. Ragsure's expansion reflects rising demand for digital infrastructure across the continent. Despite this momentum, Africa still accounts for less than 2% of global colocation capacity, and experts estimate that the continent needs an additional 1,000 megawatts and 700 new data centers to meet growing demand by 2030. However, key structural challenges threaten to slow this expansion. A shortage of skilled professionals and an unreliable power supply are the most pressing issues, especially in Nigeria and South Africa. Regulatory uncertainty, limited access to capital, and bureaucratic hurdles such as lengthy permit processes and complex equipment imports further complicate developments. Additionally, high upfront construction costs, dependence on diesel generators, and fragmenting regulations make the environment especially tough for smaller operators and international investors. In response, companies are adopting various strategies to overcome these barriers. Many are now turning to renewable energy solutions, including on-site solar plants, power wheeling, and power purchase agreements with independent producers. Investment in energy-efficient cooling technologies such as liquid and free cooling are helping to reduce operational costs and improve sustainability. Modular data centers are also gaining traction due to their lower setup costs and shorter deployment times. Policy reforms are playing a growing role in attracting investment and facilitating growth. Countries like South Africa, Kenya, and Egypt are implementing national strategies and offering tax incentives to draw in global tech firms. These pro-investment measures, along with improvements in infrastructure and streamlined compliance processes, are seen as essential steps toward unlocking the full potential of Africa's digital economy. Still ahead, Africa holds around 30% of the world's reserves of minerals vital for green technologies, including lithium, cobalt, and graphite, resources essential for electric vehicles, solar power, battery storage, and other clean energy systems. As the global energy transition accelerates, demand for these minerals is expected to grow significantly, with production projected to rise by nearly 500% by 2050, according to the Mo Ibrahim Foundation. At the 2025 African Climate Summit in Addis Ababa, leaders across the continent emphasized the need to move away from the old model of raw minerals export toward local processing and value addition. The summit focused on renewable energy, e-mobility, and climate finance, underscored green industrialization as key to ensuring long-term economic benefits. Moving on, the Executive Secretary of the UN Economic Commission for Africa, UNECA, called for investment in domestic industries and stronger regional cooperation. The shift is already taking shape through initiatives like the UNECA Afreximbank Battery and Electric Vehicle Initiative in the Democratic Republic of Congo and Zambia, which supports the development of special economic zones for battery manufacturing. These efforts are seen as crucial for building a foundation for Africa's entry into the global EV supply chain. Further momentum is being driven by the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is positioned to support cross-border value chains and reduce reliance on foreign processing. To coordinate and sustain this transformation, UNECA is also promoting the Future African Critical Minerals Alliance, a platform to develop a unified strategy that ensures Africa's resources fuel its own development and economic sovereignty. And away from Africa now, U.S. President Donald Trump has announced plans to impose an additional 100% tariffs on imports from China beginning next month, further straining relations between the world's two largest economies. The move follows Beijing's decision to tighten export controls on rare earth materials, which are critical to the production of cars, smartphones, and defense equipment. Trump accused China of becoming very hostile and attempting to hold the world captive, adding that he might withdraw from a scheduled meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping. though he later said the talks were not officially cancelled. The announcement sent shockwaves through financial markets, with the S&P 500 falling by 2.7%, its steepest decline in months. China, which dominates global rare earth production, has also launched a monopoly investigation into U.S. tech giant Qualcomm, an action that could delay the company's acquisition of another chip maker. Additionally, Beijing revealed plans to impose new port fees on ships owned or operated by U.S. companies, further escalating the trade standoff. The U.S. and China have been in a fragile truce since May, after both countries agreed to ease earlier triple-digit tariffs that had nearly halted trade. However, renewed disputes over critical minerals, semiconductor technology, and export rules have reignited tensions. Analysts believe China's latest actions are designed to strengthen its negotiating position ahead of planned discussions between both sides at a summit in South Korea later this month. Experts also say that the new Chinese export restrictions could directly impact the U.S. defense industry, putting Washington in a position where it may have to return to the negotiating table. Greslin Bhaskaran, a policy analyst, noted that targeting America's defense supply chain forces urgent negotiations. Although a Trump-Xi Jinping meeting now seems uncertain, observers believe dialogue is still possible before China's new export rule takes effect in December, leaving room for potential compromise between both companies or nations. Let's now go on a quick break. The news continues when we return.
Continuous Threat Exposure Countermeasure, CTEM. CTEM tools enable organizations to continuously monitor and address vulnerabilities in real time. This proactive approach helps businesses stay ahead of cyber threats and comply with security standards. While CTEM systems are improving cybersecurity, managing them can be resource-intensive. Sectors like finance, healthcare, and government are adopting these tools to protect sensitive data. Democratize generative AI. Generative AI, which creates new content like text, images, or music, is becoming more accessible. This trend is enabling businesses and individuals to leverage powerful AI tools without needing deep technical expertise. Tools like DALL-E are already transforming marketing, entertainment, and design. However, as generative AI becomes democratized, concerns about copyright infringement and misuse of content are rising.
Welcome back. And now in health, a Nigerian professor based in the United States, Nchebeja Iluanusi, has developed a groundbreaking artificial intelligence system capable of predicting the onset of depression in real time, even before clinical symptoms become visible. Iluanusi, who teaches in the Department of Biology at the College of Staten Island City University of New York, unveiled innovation which integrates data from heart rate signals, sleep patterns, and speech analysis to detect early indicators of depression. The system employs a transformer-based AI module that analyzes heart rate variability, HRV, sleep quality, and speech biomarkers collected through wearable devices and voice inputs. Unlike traditional mental health screening tools that depend on self-reporting and occasional clinical evaluations, this model enables continuous monitoring to identify physiological and emotional changes days or weeks before a diagnosis is typically made. The professor noted that this approach aims to close the diagnostic gap, which over 76% of the estimated 280 million global depression cases going undetected until symptoms become severe. Designed for integration into smartphones, wearables, and telehealth platforms, the AI tool allows clinicians to monitor patients remotely and intervene early. The system tracks stress levels via HRV, evaluates sleep architecture for mood stability, and assesses changes in speech patterns, such as tone and rhythm, to detect signs of emotional shifts. Iluanusi emphasized that while the tool is a major step forward, it is not meant to replace psychiatric evaluations, but to serve as an early warning system that enhances traditional care. He also stressed the importance of ethical deployment, calling for larger clinical trials, strong privacy protections, and informed consent frameworks. Mental health experts have welcomed the innovation as a timely advancement in proactive mental health, especially in low-resource settings where mental health services are often limited or inaccessible. And now in business, the Naira appreciated to 1,458 per dollar on Friday, its strongest level since 2024. As the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, ramped up intervention to stabilize the foreign exchange market, the local currency had opened the week at 1,464 naira per dollar, slipped slightly midweek, and then rebounded steadily to close on a strong note. The parallel market is traded between 1,495 naira and 1,505 naira to $1, indicating a narrowing gap between official and unofficial rates. On a week-on-week basis, the Naira gained 11 naira, appreciating by about 1.1% from the previous week's close of 1,469 naira to $1. Data from the CBN also shows that external reserves increased slightly to $42.5 billion, up from $42.4 billion the previous week, maintaining an upward trend since mid-July. Analysts linked this improvement to increased crude oil production, stronger inflows, and tighter controls on dollar demand and speculative trading. President Tinubu, in his Independence Day speech, emphasized his administration's commitment to forex reforms, noting that the era of multiple exchange rates had ended. He added that the Naira was no longer at the mercy of crude oil price swings, and the narrowing spread between the official and parallel markets reflected growing confidence in monetary policy. Meanwhile, CBN Governor Olayemi Cardozo, represented by an official during a recent engagement in Uyo, highlighted the impact of recent reforms, particularly the introduction of the B-Match system for forex trading. The system is designed to improve transparency and efficiency in currency transactions, while also supporting broader efforts to stabilize inflation and exchange rates across the economy. And now in sports, President of the Nigeria Football Federation, NFF, Ibrahim GUSAU, has vowed to use his recent appointment to the FIFA Men's Club Competitions Committee to advocate for the development of African football. GUSAU, who also heads the West African Football Union Zone B, WAFU B, emphasized that he will leverage his experience and leadership roles within the continent to represent African interests effectively on the global football stage. He described the appointment as both an honor and a responsibility, noting that his involvement in CAF Executive Committee meetings and regional football governance would allow him to bring valuable insights to the committee's discussions. GUSAU expressed his commitment to contributing meaningfully to policy decisions that can accelerate the growth of football economies, especially in countries where the sport remains underdeveloped. GUSAU stressed that strengthening club football is key to unlocking broader economic potential with the sport across Africa. He also voiced his eagerness to work alongside Committee Chairman Jassim Aibuanain of Qatar and Deputy Chair Mikel Arriola of Mexico to shape the future of men's club football globally. In addition to GUSAU's appointment, several other Nigerians were named to key FIFA committees. Amaju Pinnick, former NFF president, was made Deputy Chair of the FIFA Men's National Team Competitions Committee. Aisha Falode was named to the FIFA Media and Communications Committee, while A.U. Mustafa joined the Anti-Racism and Anti-Discrimination Committee. Justice Ayotunde Phillips was also retained on the FIFA Ethnics Committee. This appointment reflects Nigeria's growing influence within the international football governance. But that's the most we can take on Idea TV Midday News. But before we go, a quick recap of the headlines. We brought you news that Nigeria is set to adopt European digital governance model. We also told you the World Bank has warned food inflation is crushing Nigerians' poor masses. Africa's data center boom faces power, skills, and regulatory hurdles. Africa also eyes green industrial future with critical mineral wealth. Away from Africa, Trump warns of 100% tariff on China as trade tension deepens. And in health, Nigerian professor develops AI system to predict depression before symptoms appear. And in business, Naira strengthens to 1,458 Naira per dollar, marking best performance since 2024. And in sports, NFF President GUSAU pledges to drive African football growth in FIFA role. Do not forget to follow us across our different social media platforms at Idea TV. I am Chinatu Oji. Enjoy the rest of our programs.